understand here the role of automotive software. So, from a customer's point of view, what are some of those typical challenges that can be mitigated by the use of automotive software?
So, our insight has been that most people are not really enjoying their daily commute. There is a reason why everyone wants to find a place or rent a place near their office. Nobody says that, okay, I would prefer to stay 20 kilometers away so that I can get more commute time. And there's a reason, because there is so much anxiety. And truly, we have actually just internalized that till I actually kind of extracted it out of the people. It wouldn't even register that that we have been consuming this kind of an anxiety in our daily commute very naturally. Things like worried about, let's say, where to go, how to find the route, will I get stuck in the traffic, and if it's a two-wheeler, safety aspect. If it's night and you're a woman, well, there's a different definition or the challenges with the safety. The other thing is, this is also a period in the era of always on. This is a time where the peak of the productive times of the day, which is say in the morning around 9 a.m., 8 a.m., or in the evenings around 5, 6 p.m., you're actually on the road, not able to do anything. That's a complete waste of time, and that has a completely different set of anxieties that people see, and that's why people want to reach their destination as soon as possible. There's a relief when you actually reach you park your vehicle and like, okay, I've come, and so on, right? So these are the things, if you encompass the entire experience of what people are doing, all the way from even starting with the intent of I have to get somewhere, to the entire journey of going, riding it and reaching the destination, and after reaching destination, finding parking, worrying about, is my vehicle safe and so or not, etc. All of these are like so many, I would say, points. There are like so many areas of friction, so many areas of anxieties. These are all something nobody would talk about very openly, because, as I said, for decades we have just internalized it. We have assumed that this is how we live, whereas we do not have to. There is now a possibility to solve these problems, and that's where we have the tech today. Because of the maturity of IoT, communications technology, in fact, the arrival of 4G, 5G, all of these have now enabled it, to actually have made it possible to actually solve these problems.
Right. And so these are the problems. So the problems you primarily mentioned were related to the customer experience and how they experience driving on a daily basis. So when it comes to when you filter it, and then in what kind of features would the solutions manifest when you solve these problems?
So I think I'll just take a step back to one of the things you mentioned, where you said that I've primarily listed problems in customer experience. The reality is, today most of the people are still, I think, solving the problem of vehicle diagnostics using this technology. I honestly think that's probably 5 or 10% of the problem space that can be solved, because as vehicles and the components are maturing, the downtimes, in fact, the goal is to actually reduce the downtime as much as possible. So to just build an entire solution around what to do in case a downtime happens, I would say is actually like a losing proposition right from the beginning. So a majority of the problem too and the opportunity to solve is actually on the customer experience side. So when you ask about what features, and this is where I probably do not want to use the word features lightly, because I think that people like look at things that, okay, I have a tech and I can build any feature. But the reason those don't work is because you have not built it like a product. But to just give you an example, as I said, right, I think all of you know that Ather is the first scooter, even globally, to have introduced a touchscreen dashboard on a two-wheeler. And with it, obviously, one of the core features was maps. So imagine your experience of, and this is because it's a very personally relatable problem to me as well. The moment there is an unknown location that I have not been to before, that I have to drive to, I usually prefer Uber because of the hassle of, get that worry of getting lost, figuring out what the route is how the traffic will be, and so on. And while you can always say that, okay, I have maps in my phone, especially in the form factor of a two-wheeler, like how many times will you stop? Like I have a flyover to overcome, cross. How many times do I have to stop somewhere to take out my phone, see the maps, and so on, right? So that I would say that's an example. The other thing is another feature, in fact, that was introduced was call controls. So this is another area where, which I would say is again an innovation in the two-wheeler automotive software space, because as I said, think of this 1 to 2 hours a day of the peak productive period that you're spending just driving to your locations, be it your office or home, and that's honestly seen as like a wasted time by most of the people. So there is so much anxiety, and this is a relatable problem again to a lot of people. Imagine you're receiving a call, and there is it's you're receiving a call because it's vibrating in your pocket, and now you have so much anxiety in the first place, like, okay, who is calling? Is this important? If I don't take this call, will I lose my business with some important client? Or is it some family who wants to know something, whatever, right? So either you'll, again, if you're safety conscious, you'll go somewhere, find a place to stop, call back, or you're not able to find a place, so you actually just pick the phone, and while riding you're just like doing this and like riding. So this would be another, like, say, an area that you can solve by actually having a very seamless call control capabilities, right? So yeah, a couple of examples on how software can completely change how your experience during the journey happens.
I was reading one of your articles, and you'd said that automotive software has largely failed. I want to understand why. What makes you say that?
Yeah. Yeah, so that title was intentionally meant to be a bit provocative, because I have worked for so long, so there is that passion that comes out of that. But when I said automotive has largely failed, the definition of success in a consumer electronics or a consumer devices area is, how are people receiving your product? Are they talking enough about it? How are the reviews? Is there enough excitement? Are sales happening because of those things? Is there word of mouth spreading, some kind of virality spreading because of that? So this is how you would say that something is successful. So you see any of the keynotes of even, say, any of these gadgets as well, not just automotives. And if depending, you can actually sense that depending on the buzz, is it likely to take off, not take off? Is it going to be, say, a dud in the market, and so on? And even once the sales start happening, you can actually track the numbers. Now, in the case of automotive software, we do not have any public information in terms of, because like it's not an independent product to be sold as a single. So it's the automotive itself. But these are the other ways where you know that how many people are actually talking about it. And you would see that, like, most of the press coverage barely talks about it. You speak to any average driver of a car or a scooter. Okay, let's talk about car, because the software in cars have been there for much longer. Like, so many people I have come across have said that I barely use those features, because they were actually like surprised that I'm actually building my career in this space. So because people could not even relate to, like, why are you building something that nobody uses it? People don't know what there is. It doesn't influence their, say, decision to purchase a vehicle or not, because something exists. So that's how I would say that it hasn't really taken off. And what that implies is that The earlier predictions that this is completely going to change the business models of automotives, it's like going to be equivalent of like what App Store did to, did to an iPhone. I think all of that completely fell flat. People have had challenges with monetizing it. I think they're still struggling with, I would say, figuring out what is the best way to monetize or make people pay for it. But I would say before even monetizing, a more definitive way to look at it is, are enough people even using it? So sometimes if there is a bug or it doesn't work, are enough people creating noise? And if you see none of that is happening, you know that people don't even care about your product. That's how I would say that automotive has largely failed.
Are the mistakes that OEMs are making when it comes to choosing how to use automotive software, what features or solutions to enable in their vehicles? What are those mistakes? Where are we missing out on using the full potential of automotive software?
I think the three, I would say like there are probably three key areas and which kind of exists in different places, all three or some of them or one of them. The first one being, you have to look at it as a product, not a tech that you say plaster onto your vehicle at the last minute as an afterthought, just because everybody is talking about software defined vehicles, and now let's just make them connected, let's just make them smart, let's just add some software. Hey, this feature is possible, let's just add them. Like I have been like say in different places where I travel, I end up renting different models of cars through Zoomcar and so on, and I have had so much struggle even to pair my phone with the say the infotainment cluster. I think when you're smiling, I can see that it must be something you relate to as well. That is such a pathetic experience, and that's the thing. It's not that these cars do not have the features, it's just that the entire experience is not developed well. It's not developed as a product. It's like, hey, there is a tech, let me just enable it. So there is no vision around it, there is no storytelling in terms of how it will change your life. There is no thought around the entire journey, all the way from how do I onboard you? How will you even discover that this is there? How do I get you onboarded? How do I get how do I get you using this? How do I make sure it's actually a daily part of your usage? There is no thought. It's just like, okay, it's possible to build these features. Let me just dump them. Many don't even care that if it's working well or not. Like check, if you check, say Play Store or App Store for most of the automotive apps, they're like such poor ratings. You wouldn't see that in any of these e-commerce companies. Like the app ratings are like definitely above 4.5, but that's not the case with automotive apps because it's such an afterthought. So that's, I would say, is the first part, which is you need to have a vision for the product. It has to be seen as a product. It's not a capability that you just dump after the entire vehicle design has been done. Everything has been done, and now this team is being called up. Hey, now you make this smart. Use the tech that's possible. This is the hardware you have. This is the form factor you have. Do what you can and whatever features you can. So that is not going to work. The second part is, I think it's important to fundamentally understand that this goes into the area of internet technologies, now communication technologies. And the approach of product building is, at least from an execution point of view, is very different. In its simplest form, what would take at least a year or two to think about in terms of, say, a vehicle, like if you think about a new vehicle platform, it's definitely a multi-year project. Even if you think of like say a new generation of the vehicle, it's at least like a year out. Whereas the timeline for these products based on internet technologies are actually, you have to think in terms of weeks. And secondly, you have a lot more ability, or you have some unique capabilities that this technology enables. For example, you can do A/B tests in validations. You can't do that with hardware. You can actually measure very accurately how the customers are using, who is using it, how often do they use and drop off, and so on. You can't do that with a very mechanical say device. Like if it's a very mechanical door, you can't figure out like which all customers use the door, how often do they close it, open it, and so on. You take a bet, or you do your periodic, say, surveys or consumer research, but it just gives you a very directional data. But that's very different from an internet technology one. So this whole thing of continuous discovery, iterative development is something that people like these companies would, automotive companies would have to incorporate. That would be, I would say, the second area where if you treat it or try to build it the exact same way as how your automotive product, the hardware is built, then it's again like bound to fail. The third area is, I would say, is the org structure itself. And one key question to ask for, I think, for all in the leadership of all these automotive companies is the person who is, say, involved in the automotive software side. What is like, who is the most senior most person? And in many places, that person would be somewhere in like, say, like, like a very like middle management, maybe embedded with some other larger team which has a bigger charter and so on. Basically, there isn't enough of the representation or a seat at the table for this team, which means that all key product decisions are being made without inputs from this area completely. You would not see that in the consumer electronics world. So I would say these are the three areas I think are probably where I see the biggest gaps.
Okay, yeah, well said. Uh, so, as an OEM, you have to decide whether to develop this automotive software for their product in house, or you turn to a specialist automotive software provider and integrate their solutions. So, what are the factors that would influence this decision?
This is a tough question because uh, while I don't like to say it, but I will have to say it depends. So one of the factors I would definitely, more than anything else, I would look at is what is your DNA like, and where you like, or even where you want to be. So if you are, as a company, you are say some who identifies and competes on the dimension of innovation, being able to build, say, breakthrough technologies, be one of the earliest ones to introduce it to the market. It's going to be hard to find this as an off-the-shelf solution from your vendors. So in that case, your in-house, I mean, you would have to have an in-house capability. And usually the markets, or if not in India, at least I know in US markets, they do put some premium if you have that in-house capability yourself. On the other hand, if the basis on which you're competing is, you may say that, okay, I do not necessarily have to be the first, but I am really great at execution, and my modes are in, say, elsewhere, for example, manufacturing or distribution and so on. But I can easily meet parity in some of these killer, say, capabilities or features. And I'm great at, say, working with vendors. I think in that case, it's okay to have your model where you're working with, say, outsourced vendors. But as I said, but you have to know what is the dimension on which you're competing, and um, and also the realities of the market. For example, if you have a very mature product out there, it it makes sense even for the ones who are on the innovator side to actually just take it from take an off the shelf product from outside. But usually it's going to be rare in any nascent industries. Nascent industries usually still have a lot where some companies have to do things in house, which then slowly percolates and spreads into the ecosystem, where some players in the ecosystem will learn from them and say that, no, I can also build these systems and offer to the other companies. So I would say it's actually, there is a way for both to compete, but it doesn't take away the fact that no matter which bucket you fall into, you still need to have a vision for the product and execute it back.
Okay. So, in your observation of automotive software features, and I'm only talking about largely two-wheelers here, what are the up and coming trends in automotive software globally that excite you?
I would say it rather depresses me more than more than excites. I think given how much challenges these companies, like at least some of the very well-known names, seem to be facing, which I think some of the Indian two-wheeler companies have actually solved so well. So I would say that what for me, what's exciting is not necessarily going to come from the automotive space, but rather the trends that's happening in the broader consumer electronics space, whose application I see in automotive space. So one of the things that's something I'm actually watching out for is these emergence of actually AI devices. Now, keeping the device part aside, what's really exciting for me is that while voice technology, say which is voice recognition, text to speech, speech to text, has been there for a long time. It has never been, frankly, a complete experience because the ability of the underlying language models to detect the intent and give back an appropriate answer has always been very poor. So you are actually reduced to very strict commands. Like if you don't use the phrase in exact this sequence, it will not work. But I think Chat GPT, something like that, or basically generative AI, has changed that, right? So it is now far more conversational. So for me, what's exciting is that the way we interact with the devices, which has so far been in the form of touch screens, which meant that you have to be also digitally savvy to be able to use that effectively. That barrier reduces a lot. So imagine just being able to tell you're driving a car and you just tell the car through voice in your own language in a very conversational way that hey, can you park somewhere in this lane? And the car has its vision systems, and it's first of all, the most important thing is it's able to recognize that what is your intent. You want to park in this lane somewhere. Today, or at least by today, I mean before generative AI, this kind of a command was not possible unless it was actually coded in this phrase. But now it's possible. And now, because of the advancements in all these control systems, which have been there, it's actually possible for the car to find a parking place and park itself. Or similarly, just say that I'm riding my two wheeler and suddenly on the way I say, hey, it looks like it's going to rain. Can you navigate me to some good cafe nearby? I'm actually like, let's say if I'm going to be able to say, give an instruction to the vehicle this way, imagine the scooter, which knows in general what kind of cafes I have been so far and hence knows my preference. Maybe it knows the ratings of the cafes. Uh, and it actually recommends what is a good nearby cafe that I can go to. The navigation automatically say gets set up and comes on the dashboard, and like I just drive there. So I would say that these are the kind of things I feel like, or the experiences that I can see can continue to evolve and really change how we interact with the vehicle. So this is an area I'm very excited about. The other area is, as I said, how do you incorporate more and more of the productivity that you can do while riding? As I said, like the call control is just a start. Message controls is a natural extension, but there's so much more that you can start embedding while you're riding and without actually distracting your driving as well. So I would say this is the second area which is something which is exciting for me to see if automotives actually take this direction.
Okay. Uh, what kind of revenue opportunities can OEMs add with the use of automotive software? Can there be tiers to subscription? We see that in four wheelers, especially in markets outside India. So,
Yeah.
in two wheeler space and specifically in India, what kind of opportunities do you see?
So as you rightly said, in the short term, by short term I mean when you still have, say, I would say like less than maybe a few million vehicles on the road which have these capabilities. assuming everything is working, I mean, in terms of it's a successful product in however you measure, which is what I said, right? Are enough people using it, engaging with it daily, and so on. I would say the monetization is in the form of two ways. One is either you are able to command a premium on your vehicle. For example, a vehicle with these capabilities versus without these capabilities. Are you able to put a significant premium? At least, even I would say like maybe like up to a 25 to 30%, maybe even 40% premium between these two vehicles. Would be I would say one way to say that this we are able to monetize these capabilities. The second, of course, is if we choose that we are not going to make this part of the upfront price, but rather charge this as a subscription, which, as you said rightly, is more common in the Western markets. But even in India, a few companies have started subscription. That's the other way. And here is where it's interesting, right? If these models are actually successful, if you're successful at monetizing it, um, compared to an automotive company which hasn't been successful or hasn't focused on this area, for the same number of sales, you actually have maybe anywhere from, say, I would say like around 10 to 15% additional revenue, even for the same unit of sales. So that's the potential this has. Now, if you consider a longer term view where you have, say, several millions of these vehicles on the road, now we are talking about an entire ecosystem that we can build on top of these services. That's where the whole thing about affiliate revenue comes about, because now you own a platform there which a good number of people are engaged on, and hence you can actually start applying or looking for a lot of these platform-based monetization strategies, right? Like you can actually have tie-ups or partnerships with brands to say that if you want me to show you, for example, on the screen or somewhere, um, X amount. I wouldn't say ads, because I think ads requires much higher number of yes, but to be honest, I've never explored that. But I'm fairly sure that you can actually figure out some very interesting affiliate revenue models from third parties, actually, knowing that you actually own a highly engaged group of customers who are spending at least 1 to 2 hours a day on your platform, which is your smart vehicle.
Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, but before we go, I want to know what are you doing at the moment, and what career options, what are you exploring right now?
So as I said, I have taken a career break. It's been over 3 months now since I've been on a break. So far, I've been able to spend some time with family, go for a meditation camp, went for a longish trip in Southeast Asia. I'm back in Bangalore, but where I'm based. But I think after a few weeks, I'll go on a round two of travel again. So travel is something I really love. So I'm just doing that honestly in the break, to really kind of do all the checklist of things that I would always say that one day when I'm working, like one day I will be able to do this, able to do that, and so on. In terms of what next, I think I would like, at least what is clear for me, or what I would like ideally, is to continue in the fields which are in the intersection of hardware and software, because I think there is lot more degrees of freedom to conceive or innovate on things when you have both the levers to play with than just one. So I would like to continue in that, but as I said, ideally. So anyways, I like fingers crossed, and I will start exploring in some time.
All right. Thank you so much, and wish you enjoyable, safe travels for the next round. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Priyansh.